Hello there, welcome to Showcase. Marvel has reinvented the blockbuster for the 2000s. It not only became a box office juggernaut, but also turned into the envy of the film industry. And while it's recently fallen into a box office slump, the filmmakers believe their new ensemble production will lift the company to its former glory.
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm Star-Lord.
With a standard Marvel storyline, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 finds the cosmic superhero team once again defending our solar system against a supervillain. Blockbusters like these have helped Marvel make billions of dollars. But the question is whether this new Guardians movie will do the same. Media outlets say the company's latest releases have failed to match previous box office numbers, and they blame it on superhero fatigue, as well as changing moods in the post-pandemic world. And as for the Guardians of the Galaxy, reports from few weeks ago suggest pre-sale figures are not great. But some say that was because the public relations machine hadn't yet kicked into high gear. Still, the actors believe their film will grab audiences, not just with an ensemble cast and computer-generated visuals, but also human drama.
The characters learn lessons in every movie, but a mistake that some movies make is they force the characters to learn the same lessons over and over again, and they don't honor the growth of the previous lesson having been learned. And I think in our trilogy, that growth has continued to build on top of the previous growth.
We were always searching for a family until we found each other.
And that ever-growing superhero mythology is also what attracts some of the actors.
My dream was to be first in, maybe like a superhero movie or like something like X-Men. And then I saw Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, and I was like, no, this is my favorite movie now, part of this Marvel universe. So when I got to audition and then when I got the role, it just changed my life. And to have been welcomed to this family with the other Guardians of the Galaxy, it was really, really, really special, and it changed my life.
Are you ready for one last ride?
Guardians could well change the game in favor of Marvel. Some argue pre-sales aren't bulletproof predictors for success, and that fans of the characters will have the last word.
For ex-pro boxer George Foreman, it's not easy to tell your story, especially when you're a celebrity. But he did just that in his new biopic that allows audiences into the ups and downs of his turbulent life.
Listen to me, George. You got a punch like I've never seen.
Big George Foreman, the miraculous story of the once and future heavyweight champion of the world. That's the name of director George Tillman's biopic about the rise, fall, and redemption of Foreman.
To hurt.
It follows him as a young, angry, and misunderstood boy into his later years as a professional boxer. For Foreman, revealing these details about his life was no easy task.
You've been a celebrity, you hide your life. Big gates fence around your home. Dog glasses, dog screens in your car. You don't want to tell anyone something, but I had to reveal things. I had to reveal them, and it was scary. But Tillman did a great job of bringing them out. He really did.
The film also delves into the spiritual awakening that led him to retire from boxing and pursue life as a Christian minister. And it also has the more controversial moments, such as when he held up an American flag after his first Olympic win in 1968. The same year, former athletes Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised the Black Power salute during their medal ceremony.
We thought he was dead.
Like after his fight with
with Joe Frazier, the party that they have, and we see George make a mistake at the party that changes his whole marriage. And then later, when George make a mistake with the young man as a minister, we all make mistakes, and that's what this movie is about, is second chance. Once you accomplish something great, then the next day, somebody can say something that can change your whole world. And that's what George felt. I thought I did something in the Olympics, and then all of a sudden I get a backlash for that. That's that emotion that I wanted the audience to be able to feel.
He's 26 and unstoppable.
How can you beat that man?
And it's the closest one could get a ringside seat to see the boxing legend in all his glory. Big George Foreman opens in theatres on April 28th.
The National Frederick Chopin Institute in Warsaw has reopened after months of renovations. Among the items on display are the composer's manuscripts as well as his last piano. Here's more.
This piano belonged to Frédéric Chopin. Still perfectly in tune, it dates back to 1848. It's on display at Warsaw's National Frederick Chopin Institute, where some major changes were made to make the conditions right and the collection even more interesting.
The main reason of this refurbishment was to create a good atmosphere, a good air condition for the originals, for the original objects, because they are very sensitive, and we've got to be very careful when we show them to the audience. And at the same time, we wanted to change some ideas of the exhibition itself, showing more of the originals.
Letters Chopin wrote to his companion Georges Sand and some satirical drawings she made of him have been added to the old display of manuscripts of Chopin's music. More personal items and paintings of the composer by various artists are also among the new additions.
Especially after the pandemic, we realized that people are overwhelmed, oversaturated with things that are not original. They had enough of it, and they wanted more originals. They wanted to touch the real thing. They cannot touch the letters, obviously, but they can almost touch them. And that was the reason for change. Be original, and we are.
The letters also give an insight into Chopin's literary talent and reveal he was a man of many skills.
The letters which are on display here are the absolute originals, certified, verified by our experts, and these are the letters he wrote himself, and they are at the heart of our collection. They are, well, romantically very inspiring, because when you read them, you get very close to Chopin, who was quite a literary man, I have to say. He wrote in beautiful Polish and in a very imaginative way. And then when you see his handwriting, it makes you a bit like, like going on a time vehicle. You feel transported to his age and to his drawing room.
With more than 7,500 items on display, this is the world's largest collection of Chopin memorabilia, and a visit here does have the feel of a time travel.
Most children tend to identify with the heroes and heroines of the stories they read or films they watch. But that wasn't quite the case with British actor and director Adjoa Andoh. She says what impressed her in William Shakespeare's Richard III was the playwright's most infamous villain.
Discontent made glorious summer by this son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths.
So I'm sort of 9 or 10, maybe. As I say, dweeby kid. And the first time I read it, I was sort of outraged in the way that children get outraged about the way that Shakespeare had unfairly represented this man and had people be vile to this man because of the way he looked. And, as a child growing up in the Cotswolds in the 1960s, it was something I resonated with.
My 4 children have done me the honor of moving many continents away. Besides,
because of your class, or it may be because of your caste, or it may be because of your race, or your sexuality, or your income bracket, or your differently abled body. Whatever it is, I want to go, hello, I see you. Yeah, Shakespeare saw you too. Have a look at this fella. He's writing somebody who has been pushed and pulled in a certain way, has been excluded in a certain way, and at a certain point goes, okay, no more of this. I will make my mark.
Bear not. Look, what I have said, I will avouch in presence of the king. I dare adventure to be sent to the tower for it.
The Addis Jazz Festival is in full swing in the Ethiopian capital. The two-day event helps fans remember and embrace the golden era of Ethio jazz with musicians young and old.
The music of Jorga Mesfin's saxophone drifted over fans at the Addis Jazz Festival on Saturday evening. But this isn't just jazz, it's Ethio jazz, a unique blend of Ethiopian sounds and American jazz. The two-day festival, started in 2019, hopes to revive the genre's golden era with a new and young generation of music lovers.
Yeah, the current generation is interested in Ethio jazz. Even younger artists are sampling the old music into their own productions. Every time we play in concerts, young audiences really give us encouragement.
Ethio jazz originated in the 1950s when Nurses Nalbandian created a fusion of traditional Ethiopian sounds and Western music. Many believe it is one of Ethiopia's greatest innovations.
Jazz is the root of all music.
Jazz fan Bezowit Kesahun says it's up to Ethiopians to promote Ethio jazz to the international community.
So it's also our responsibility as the new generation to show Ethio jazz.
Festival organizer Teshom Windimu says that while many countries struggle to find their signature musical style, Ethiopia has this untapped asset. But that schools and government support are needed to produce more artists.
Spanish artist Raquel Rodrigo was just 8 years old when she learned the traditional craft of cross-stitch. Now, 38 years old, the artist adds a modern twist to embroidery with designs that grace the streets of many countries from Saudi Arabia to Switzerland.
Spanish artist Raquel Rodrigo has been creating large-scale cross-stitch embroidery for more than a decade. From pixelated photographs, she designs delicate and colorful textile reliefs, then installs them on building facades all around the world. In her studio in Valencia, she starts by making a pattern from photographs, mostly of plants and people. Then she scales it to the size of the space where it will be installed.
The idea was simply to embroider a facade. I looked for materials that would allow me to make the facade appear to be embroidered from a distance, without having to pierce the facade. So I looked for the square wire mesh, which serves as a support, and which is not visible from afar, so it remains invisible. The facade looks embroidered, just with the cotton cords, which is a thicker size, so that it's more like a textile relief in the end.
Besides adorning cities of the world, Rodrigo also takes orders from hotels and restaurants to decorate their interiors. As it takes 3 days to produce 1 square meter, she needs collaboration to produce works of a larger scale. And depending on the size of the project, Rodrigo may hire up to 50 people. Inmaculada Martinez is one of the senior embroiderers who works with Rodrigo, and she says she loves what they do.
It attracts your attention and you feel like touching it, not just looking at it. That's what it is. You move away to see it well, but at the same time you want to get closer to touch it. So that's what I really like about these projects we do, that you enjoy them with all your senses.
Rodrigo learned how to cross-stitch from her mother, and she took this traditional craft, usually done at home on towels and bedding, and adjusted it into artwork to decorate streets. But more importantly, she gave visibility to this art by bringing it outdoors. And this, she says, is also how she pays tribute to her roots.
The French Rococo era is known for its elaborate fashions, but the costume designer of the new period drama Chevalier had to take a minimalist approach to the outfits.
Welcome to Paris, Joseph.
Chevalier tells the true story of Joseph Bolognier, Chevalier de Saint-Georges, the illegitimate son of a French plantation owner and an African slave. He was a musical prodigy who received widespread critical acclaim in the 18th century. The period film's costume designer, Oliver Garcia, says normally he would have months to prepare for such a production, but scheduling issues forced him to research, gather and design hundreds of costumes from the era in just 4 weeks.
We wanted to do a more minimalistic approach to the design. So the operas, which we have 3 on the film, were the place in where we could go, this is what Rococo looked like. So we put all our efforts and decorate everything as much as we could into those costumes.
But taking a modern approach and making less ornate costumes meant color would become more significant. Especially in the case of Chevalier, Garcia wanted to make sure the character stands out.
You read the script and you realize that you have a character that has been forgotten in history. So it is a character that you want to shine a light on, pretty much. So it pretty much felt like that you wanted almost like having a spotlight on him. And every time that you see him, we want him to be reflecting light. We want people to look at him.
As for the women in the film, they wore tight corsets to reflect 18th century undergarments. But despite many fittings to each actor's measurements, it was still a challenge at times.
At the beginning, it is a little bit of a shock for the body. So some people might take 2-3 days of wearing the corset full time to then adjust and get used to it. But it is something that your body adapts to eventually. And you do get a lot of actresses with being uncomfortable for 1 or 2 days.
You could be more influential than you know.
The film has received mixed to positive reviews, and for one critic, the costumes play a huge role in documenting Chevalier's slow, painful journey to self-understanding and self-love.
Not everything is about you people.
Live and Let Die was released 50 years ago at a time when the Black civil rights movement was in full swing. And in our movie almanac, Alijan explains how that political climate gave this particular James Bond outing a sociopolitical edge.
Roger Moore is James Bond 007 in Ian Fleming's Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die takes 007 from New Orleans to the Caribbean to solve the mystery killings of MI6 agents. In contrast to the British iconography of the previous films, this James Bond outing relies on black urban culture, as well as superstitions of the Caribbean. And there's a reason for that change in tone. Live and Let Die was released in 1973 and influenced by the black empowerment films of the time. That movie wave, in turn, was a result of the Black Power movement that promoted African American rights.
Right. 007 is on a worldwide manhunt.
Some reviews said Bond had finally caught up with the times.
You want to catch a big fish there? It's only 2 pounds over here. Good morning.
But others found the portrayal of the black community as a threat to white people to be racially offensive.
This is the Bond adventure with more excitement.
But what adds another layer to the socio-political aspect of Live and Let Die is that Ian Fleming's original book had a completely different angle. In it, the Soviets were using the black movement to cause turmoil in the United States. That difference is again a result of the political climate of the day. Fleming wrote it in the 1950s, and that was when the Cold War was at its peak.
And if you miss this one, you'll miss the most exciting 007 adventure of them all.
But now, 50 years after the movie's release, and in the aftermath of the Black Lives Matter campaign, people are debating whether the next James Bond should be a black actor, which may well add yet another layer to the 007 franchise.
One of Germany's best-known artists is getting a permanent space in Berlin. The exhibition features dozens of works by Gerard Richter, with pieces reflecting the country's Nazi past taking center stage.
The Neue National Gallery presents Gerard Richter, 100 Works for Berlin. The highlight of this series are pictures secretly taken by Jewish prisoners inside the Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp.
The entire oeuvre of Gerard Richter is characterized by a tension between figuration and abstraction. The central work in the exhibition is the Birkenau, which was created in 2014. Gerard Richter deals once again with the theme he dealt with throughout his entire creative period, namely the examination of the National Socialist past and the Holocaust.
The painting showing his Uncle Rudy wearing a Nazi German military uniform is also poignant, while this one features his teenage aunt, who was later killed during Nazi euthanasia program. As for Richter, he escaped from the communist East Germany to Dusseldorf in West Germany in 1961, and around 10 years later, he became a globally known artist.
I believe that Gerard Richter is not only incredibly important for German art history, but also has a very important position for international art and art history in general. That's because he spent his whole life dealing with the basic theme of painting. What can painting do? What are its limits? What possibilities does painting have? And I think that the exhibition makes that very clear. We can really show the whole variety of figurative works, abstract works, glass and mirror works in the exhibition.
The museum worked closely with the artists to develop the wide-ranged show, and both sides hope that in the future, artists from various fields will find different ways to present Richter's art in ever-new contexts.
Nine works by mostly Spanish masters loaned from New York's The Frick collection are now on display at Spain's Prado Museum. And it's been 100 years since they've been home. Let's take a look.
Henry Clay Frick made his fortune from steel, rail, and cola. The wealthy American businessman also started collecting art at the beginning of the 20th century. These paintings, dating all the way back to the Renaissance, have been on display at Frick's New York residence since 1935. And time also has a lot to do with a unique collaboration between the Frick collection and the Prado Museum, all the way in Madrid.
Traditionally, we've not lent paintings that were acquired by the founder of the collection, Henry Clay Frick, but we are in the midst of a renovation of our permanent house. It's a Gilded Age house which he built in 1914, and it's beginning to show signs of age, and so, as we are all doing. And so we've moved out completely during this period to renovate the house.
The Prado Museum has now paired the guest paintings with its own collection of the same masters to show similarities and differences in style and reveal the mastery with which they're made. It's not a big collection, but the wait was worth it.
This is the first time in 100 years that we have lent this group of pictures. The Frick has a small but excellent collection of Spanish paintings, 9 paintings, and we're thrilled to have them here in the heart of the Prado's collection of Spanish paintings. And for us, what's I think most exciting is to not only share them with the public here in Spain, but to have juxtaposition.
The Frick collection also shows what the canon of Spanish painting was for the American collectors of the early 20th century. The exhibition will remain on display until July the 2nd.
That's it for this episode of Showcase. I'm Addis from me and the whole team here in Istanbul. Thanks for watching and bye for now.